gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy.
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. And this week, we're talking about B2B marketing lessons from J Dilla's album Donuts with the help of our special guest, head of marketing at Crowdcube.
Toronto, I need to put y'all hands together for the one and only J Dilla.
John Hills. John, how are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Yeah, really good. How about you?
I am excited to eat this donut that I have right here. The mandatory. So Meredith, what's your donut?
It's pink. Well, I always think it's strawberry frosted, but it's probably in reality pink frosted with sprinkles. Right. It's from Bosa Donuts. Yeah,
Ooh,
classic Homer Simpson donut.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
Looks great.
It is a Homer Simpson donut. John, What do you have?
I've got two. I was a bit greedy, but I'm hungry. Raspberry cheesecake.
Ooh, nice.
I
got it. I think I have I believe it's an old fashioned, although it could be it's really, I think it's actually a buttermilk. It's like a glazed buttermilk is I think what it actually is, but it's sort of similar-ish to an old fashioned. Although, donut heads are probably now just fell off their chair that I compared the two. But no, I think it's actually a buttermilk. It's not an old fashioned. I think I misspoke. But now I got to get it right. We'll figure it out. I think it's buttermilk though. But
you do not want to upset the donut mafia. That's a serious line.
No, definitely not. So why are we talking donuts today? And what are we even talking about here, John? Why did you choose donuts to talk about?
Oh, well, where to start? So the theme is donuts in honor of J Dilla's second studio album, Donuts, who was also a massive donut lover. And the album is partly sort of in honor of the food stuff. Why did I pick it? And why is it relevant to content marketing? How long have we got? We're going to go deep. It's an instrumental album. It's remarkable because at the time, comes out in 2006. No one else is really doing instrumental. It's always with rap or with words, with songs over the top. It comes out with this instrumental album. It's artistic brilliance. It's genre defying. No one really knows where to put it, what to do with it. The best sort of criticism at the time likened it to like driving along in your car. You've got the radio on, you're switching through stations. It takes you on this whole different type of journey. You've got deep emotions in there. You've got love. You've got nostalgia. Ultimately, it's actually about a man coming to terms with his own mortality. He does die before the album gets released, unfortunately, which is sad.
He's like the Tupac of beats. You know what I'm saying? Like, Tupac records still get released like he did them yesterday. It's like, he can't be dead.
It's 20 years old. It's still fresh. It's in Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time. And it's just a great listen, really. There's so much you can learn on like an artistic, spiritual, and of course, a marketing level as well. That's why we've got donuts.
And it's also it's why we're talking donuts and why we have donuts exactly. I don't know how we're going to eat the donuts during the podcast episode. I feel like, John, you and I need to strategically do it while Meredith's talking. And then Meredith can strategically do it while we're talking. Zooming out, tell us a little bit about Crowdcube and your role there.
Yeah, so I run the marketing team at Crowdcube, and we're Europe's largest equity crowdfunding platform. What does that mean to the uninitiated? Well, we connect companies that want to raise money with the people that want to invest in them. It's going pretty well. We've been around 13 years. We've helped about 1,300 businesses raise almost $2 billion USD from our investor community of north of 1 million people. And in terms of the marketing team, we are 6 people. We're based in London, UK, and in Paris, France. And we're basically a funding marketplace. So we do 2 things. We help our commercial team engage with and educate companies that we'd like to work with. And then we also help those companies run the campaigns that they do on our platform, because marketing to people and asking them for money, it takes a little bit of marketing. It's a trust thing. It's multi-touch. It's confidence. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. And that's who I am.
Meredith, what the heck is J Dilla's album Donuts?
So as John sort of mentioned, the creation of Donuts is actually quite sad. In February of 2006, James Yancey is at his home in Los Angeles. He's sitting in a wheelchair and he's 32 years old, but he can no longer walk or talk and he has problems with his hands. But on the table in front of him is an MPC 3000 sampler.
I mean, he made the MPC 3000 sound like a band. You know what I'm saying? He made records speak as if like each instrument was somebody really playing it, especially his drums. His drums sound like someone just really rocking it. You know what I'm saying?
His mom, Maureen, said the day before he passed away, he was at the table in his wheelchair on that machine working. He would have it no other way. James Yancey is actually J Dilla, who we're talking about. He's a rapper and producer, and he has a cult-like following. He had worked with The Roots, A Tribe Called Quest, Common, Eminem, Erykah Badu, so many amazing artists that are household names everybody knows.
4, 3, 2, 1. What's the station, JD?
105.9.
Make the pledge, yo. Extraordinaire, straight from the D, and producing music for some of the greats in the business. Now, your name may not be on the Janet Jackson album, but that's your track.
Right.
And does that mean you actually worked in the studio with Janet Jackson?
Yes.
And so to go back in 2002, he started having health issues, and it was initially found that he had this rare blood disease that basically causes blood clots to form throughout the body. He ended up going into kidney failure. He was also later diagnosed with lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. But despite his health issues, he continued working, and he was working on an album called Donuts. And I was like, why is it called Donuts? And from what I've read, it's reportedly simply because he just loves them. He loves donuts.
Dilla's personality as a kid was a recluse. I was the one he was bugging, because I had the donuts and I would bring the donuts. And with me, he would talk because he knew I was the bearer of the donuts,
But also to mention, and I think, John, you mentioned this at some point, that the album is in a loop. It's made of loops, and it also, you can listen all the way around. And the album would end up having 31 songs on it. It lasts only 43 minutes. Most of the songs are under 3 minutes total. And he samples from I watched this YouTube video that was all the samples from Donuts, and it just keeps going. It's all these things that you may or may not know are samples. So he takes from Dionne Warwick, the Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Kool and the Gang, and a lot of others that I hadn't mentioned, Indian artists and from all around the world. And so I thought that was super cool, a lot of stuff that I'd never heard before. On sampling, J Dilla says,
when I hear good shit, it makes me want to go make something, but not make something like what I just heard. That's the only difference. It's they take the inspiration and then goes and do the exact same thing. I don't understand that. You know what I'm saying? Where what I feel when I make music is energy. I don't understand how the shit comes through me, or when I feel the urge to work, it just happens. It's like I said, it's a move.
So he ended up being hospitalized in the summer of 2005 at Cedars-Sinai. And he continued to work on the album. He was creating songs in his hospital room. His mom was bringing him milk crates of records, and he was taking from those. And then he'd send her back and be like, there's nothing good in the rest of these. Take them back. Can you bring me more? So he was always, always productive. And then on February 7th, 2006, his album Donuts was released by Stone's Throw Records. And 3 days later, on the 10th, J Dilla passed away after his mom said it was a cardiac arrest. About a year later, he was posthumously given the Plug Award for Artist of the Year.
Wow, I have goosebumps. I hadn't realized that it was the award for 2007. I'd like to thank his fans from around the world for their support and their continued support and appreciation of his music, because it was really all that he had on the inside. His life's blood was his music. His pulse was a beat for him.
And Donuts became his most successful solo album. and is generally seen as like his goodbye letter. And then he also left behind a lot of unreleased music, and somewhere around 150 songs, although that can't trust everything you read on the internet, so it could be anything. But he was incredibly prolific, worked with some of the biggest names, and is really like a legendary artist with a very sad ending. But Donuts is surprisingly upbeat, I would say. That sounds like a pun. I don't mean it to be that way, but I was surprised listening to it how lively it is, given his circumstances, and how hopeful it is. And even given like the references he makes to, mortality and things like that. But today, John, I was super excited to talk with you about sampling in general, because I think sampling in music is super interesting, because it's like, when is it stealing? There are all sorts of like laws around that. And when is it just kind of borrowing? When is it okay? I know I've listened to like a Mark Ronson interview about sampling that was really interesting. And he's like, bringing like Beyonce songs, and a lot of that is sampled, and people wouldn't even know because they only know Beyonce. But anyway, given that, like, sampling in content is really interesting too, and wondering like what you think about sampling, how you can use it in marketing, and also like just your reaction to listening to Donuts in the first place when you first heard it.
I managed to eat 1.25 donuts, so I'm good timing wise.
Dang,
that's
you
awesome.
got 1.25. I got 3/4 of mine done.
I'm gonna work on
Oh
mine.
wow, that's good munching.
The video for this episode, the video clip is going to be amazing.
I bet
We're
I've
shoving
frozen
our
when I'm
faces
just
on Meredith's
biting it. Sorry, back to the question. I just thought a donut update was quite important. But yeah, when part of the reason that I picked the album, when we talk about what you can learn, what makes remarkable content with Donuts, the album, exactly as you said, when you think about what J Dilla does, he's basically got a stack of dusty 7-inch vinyl records. He's got his sampler, and wherever he goes, he's just thinking like, what can I do with this? How can I kind of reinvent things? How can I flip the script? Sometimes he completely changes the speeds, the vocals, what you can hear. And he creates something that is entirely new that you've not heard before. And why or how I find that inspiring from a content marketing perspective is that when you're doing content marketing, the bar is incredibly high. You can feel quite overwhelmed. Like, I don't have the budget that Apple has, neither do I have the brand expertise or the people to do it. That doesn't mean that I can't have an impact. I can still be scrappy. I can still look at what's working and kind of create things that are memorable and valuable for people. And so I think that you can just look at what's already out there and how you fit into that, rather than feeling you have to create something new. Take what's there, see what appeals to people, and see how you can make that memorable, impactful as well. And an example, I guess a topical one, is in the UK at the minute, there's been some billboard ads around for British Airways, which is the main sort of national carrier. People have been super excited about. They've done these pictures where there's basically just someone, you can Google it afterwards, it's all over LinkedIn. UK marketers have been frothing at the mouth, but there's just someone peeking out of a cabin window with their hat on. Doesn't even show all of the logo, anything about the airplane. People are super excited, and kind of, they did that through basically months of studying and preparing. And then EasyJet, which is a bit like one of our Spirit airlines, has done a billboard right next to it, and they've just put like same view, half the price. So they've taken what's already there and they've kind of bolted some clever content onto it. So I think, yeah, to go back to your original question, is just think about what you can do, be scrappy, be original, and be memorable, because that's what he does. And especially if you're in a startup marketing team, you're probably wearing a lot of hats. You don't have the budget, nor the time, nor the buy-in to do all of the things that you'd like to do. So just think about like what you can do and just run with it. Test, learn, iterate, sort of like, have that drive.
So Meredith,
Yes.
So wait, what are the rules on sampling?
Well, for our purposes, we basically can't sample music at all. And I was joking with our audio engineer. I'm like, is Taylor Swift going to come for us? Because we have a whole episode and I sampled Taylor Swift. Don't tell her. But Mark Ronson basically was saying that, like, when it comes to music, when you're creating your own music and sampling, like, obviously you should pay the artist, for the original work, but like the lines are not necessarily sharp there. Like, it's pretty blurred, and it's generally like people sample all the time. Like I mentioned Beyonce, but it's like in hip hop a lot, like people are constantly taking stuff that's out there and making it their own, making it different. And I think we see that with J Dilla too, which is like Johnny mentioned, like he slows it down or he speeds it up, and he And we see that in his quote too, where he's like, I hear this and I want to, I'm inspired by it. It gives me, it's like this energy that I feel, but I don't want to make the same thing over. I want to make it my own. And so I think that like, that's part of the music industry and part of the music culture is like taking something that you've heard and being inspired by it and making something from that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about like, all of the big artists that sample. I mean, tons and tons of them do that. And sort of, if you're making a huge record that, people are buying and things like that, you pay the artists who you took the samples from. You know what I mean? That's sort of how it works. But it's so interesting because the idea of sampling is so cool because you're taking something that they are familiar with and you're turning it on its head. And so like my big marketing takeaway for this is that your audience craves the familiar. Like they crave that moment when they hear something and they go, "Oh my gosh, I know that." Or, "Wait, what is that from again?" But they crave that moment, that it's that sense of belonging, that like something that they know that this artist also knows and they're going to bring it to them. Sometimes it's very overt with, choosing something from the Beastie Boys. Sometimes it's something, not as overt like you talked about with some of the other samples. And so then the other side of that is, the audience craves the original. They crave something that they've never heard before. And what's so cool about sampling is that you give them both. Is that you give them this thing that they are familiar with and they know and they like that, and then you sort of are able to turn it on its head, or put two songs back to back that you've never heard back to back, or weave them together in a way that is really cool. And obviously Dilla does this in the best way in Donuts, and in a way that sort of I think only he could, and it's why it's such an iconic album. But I think that like ultimately, he just liked this stuff. He said it flowed through him. Like he just liked making this stuff. And I think that sampling is also kind of interesting because you're channeling your interests. You're like part curator, part creator, right? And like that is like truly what a marketer is, right? Is like part curator, part creator. And yeah, it's just a perfect sort of metaphor for modern marketing. And I think that so much, or maybe just marketing in general, and I think that so much of what marketers do wrong is they end up curating stuff that's not that interesting to begin with, and they end up creating stuff that's not that interesting to begin with, right? But it's just so cool in the way that you can combine things that might not always stick together and make something totally novel out of that sort of, Frankenstein.
I think curation's a massive one, isn't it? You hit the nail on the head. Like there's a lot of stuff out there, and you have, if you want to engage and you want to build an audience, you want to be known as someone that's bringing them the good stuff. Kind of I'll filter through. I know which places to look, which you might not, which is kind of a little bit what he's doing on the album, right? Like I know this really particular little piece of a song, which I dug out from a record shop, and I've turned it into something that sounds really cool for you. In the same way, me as a marketer, like we have an attention economy, right? So it's kind of, why should you have to pay attention to me rather than someone else? I've done the hard yards, and I'm bringing you like the good stuff, all packaged neatly in a newsletter or a podcast, or like on a social feed or something. I think you're bang on.
What other marketing lessons do we got here, John?
I really like the idea of content IP, which is a phrase that Brendan Hufford uses, who I think is one of the best content marketers out there. What I mean by that is, again, the bar is so high and there's so much stuff out there. There's a lot of crap out there too, but there's lots of great stuff out there. And so his approach is, you could write a load of blog posts, you could create a load of content and just farm it out. Why don't you flip it on your head and, kind of find a problem that your customer really cares about, name it. So you're kind of acknowledging it, you're identifying it, and then, exist only to solve that problem. You become known, you become synonymous with that content IP. I've seen it a lot with people who have a a strong following on LinkedIn. It's one of the platforms I spend the more time on, but they become really known for doing a particular thing. So it might be about audience research when it comes to marketing. We were talking about Emily Kramer before, like the frameworks and kind of startup and growth marketing frameworks to succeed. There's loads of people that do it for other things, but you know them for that particular thing. They don't have to be explicitly in it, but as soon as you see that content, you're like, I know that's an MKT1 type thing. Now, what has that got to do with Dilla? Again, like we said, he's chopping, he's sampling, he's speeding things up, he's slowing them down.
Whenever you listen to a JD beat or whatever, you get the feel good. I call it the feel good. It's either that, or it's that, it's whichever way, I call it the feel good.
It feels like that car radio driving through different states, but he has his kind of like calling card or this stamp that you hear, and you both listen to Donuts, so you know it, but it's called like The Stakes is High Horn, which is a sample of an Isaac Hayes song, and he just peppers it into his music a bit. So I kind of think of that as his like content IP. You know it's him. It's giving you kind of what you want, which is a dopamine hit of great music. He's being there for you. And I think that's what we have to do as marketers too, right? Like basically find your Isaac Hayes horn and blast it where appropriate.
I love that. That's awesome. Okay, final marketing takeaway here.
Third one for me is most of the records that he uses are typically live performances. They're not studio ones. Why does he pick live performances? Because I'm not a musician. I play the bass, but very badly. I'm like several leagues below here. But a lot of live performances, they either have slight imperfections or people are, trying to spice it up and do it a little bit differently.
People that have heard his beat tapes, know that they're like snowflakes. Like no beat tape was the same.
And so you catch that with your ear. It's kind of more memorable. It engages you a little bit more versus the studio version, which, a professional musician is paid to get it bang on. Sometimes increasingly you use kind of machines to record or get it just right or a computer. Marketing lesson for me is thinking about what we do with AI when it comes to marketing. So definitely use AI. It can make you more productive in a lot of ways, but never lose your human touch, because that's really what's going to land with people and what's going to resonate. Kind of find ways you can be more productive. You can kind of take on the big incumbent players or do a lot more stuff, but don't use it as a replacement for thinking and kind of channeling that human experience. I think is another learning that I took from Donuts that I apply to marketing as well.
Yeah, the AI thing, and I'm loath to talk about AI sort of like all the time. It's obviously surrounding us, and I think this is a great point to talk about it. I had it in my notes as well, which is AI. To your point, could not have done what J Dilla did, right? And I don't think it really matters, again, because I sort of go back to like what makes it great is that he did it. That's what we care about. It can sound cool, but we're not. I truly believe that that there will be a time where people will probably love AI generated content a ton, because the future is endless. Who knows? But right now, there's nothing that it creates that people love. I'm talking love, right? And the reason why is because there's no human making it, right? And what B2B companies do right now, and the reason why AI can, I should say AI meaning user-generated, or meaning AI-generated content, why it can replace what B2B companies are doing right now is because they're making stuff that is so boring that it could be replaced by a robot. It is so unpersonalized. It is so not interesting. It is so skin deep that, of course, it can be replaced. It's terrible, right? Or I shouldn't even say terrible. Like, it's sometimes extremely comprehensive, but like AI is good at comprehensive. I was just writing a blog post last night, and I sort of thought, I was like, oh, that reminds me of the show Legends of the Hidden Temple. And me and Kyle and John on the team were like, oh my gosh, Legend of the Hidden Temple, like the blue barracudas or silver, the Shrine of the Silver Monkey and Olmec and all this stuff. And Colin, was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, because he'd never seen it. I know. But I was thinking, I was like, this is like this is what AI can't do, right? It can't just bring in something nostalgic. It can't just bring in something and shove it into your blog post that is completely out of left field, that 3 of the people that are reading it will totally get and instantly understand what you mean. And one person will be a little bit alienated and not get it, but they don't care either because they're just going to gloss over it. And I think that that's like such an important takeaway for, as we look at Donuts, is like, he is bringing stuff out of left field, and out of left field is inherently non-AI created, right? Out of left field is out of your brain. It's out of your experience. It's out of the summer camp that you went to when you were a kid and what you were listening to. Like when I think of J Dilla, I think of listening to Donuts in 2006 in my buddy's car, driving to New Hampshire because he was a huge J Dilla fan. I was like, who the hell is J Dilla? What are you even talking about? He's like, he's behind every great song. You don't even know. So like, that is what it means to be. And I can remember, the time and the place where I heard that stuff. And so that to me is the antithesis of AI, right? And it's what we need to be doing more in our existing content, is shoving stuff in out of left field and saying like, does this fit? Could I could I combine the Beastie Boys with, an Indian song that no one has ever heard of, or no one, I shouldn't say no one, tons of people have heard of, but not this audience per se, or an American audience, or whoever you're creating for. Not to say that Dilla was creating for an American audience, but you get what I'm saying. And I just think it's important to bring stuff out of left field, and it's what makes it's what makes the world serendipitous, and it's what makes it great, and variety is the spice of life. Okay, zooming back out, John. What is your content strategy at Crowdcube?
We have a 2-sided marketplace. So as I mentioned, we have the companies that want to raise money and the people that want to invest in them. And so if you're trying to grow a marketplace, you always have this chicken and egg debate or dynamic, right? Like, do we focus on one or the other first? Do we get a load of companies on the platform and that attracts investors to the platform? Or do we market to the investors first and then the companies come as a result of that? Marketplace dynamics typically dictates that you build up the supply. So in our case, it's the companies, and the investors come as a result of that. If you think of other marketplaces that have grown quickly and very successfully, it's the same with Uber. You get the drivers first and then the ride hailers come. If you think of Airbnb, you need to have people that want to rent out their house or one of the rooms in their house before you get people going through the trouble of, verifying who I am, going through the sign up flow. There are people that do it, but they're the minority. Why do I mention that? Well, a lot of our content strategy is geared around educating and informing companies about what equity crowdfunding is, why they might want to do it, and also kind of how it complements what they're already doing. One of the problems that we have is that founders, particularly of successful businesses, are impossible to get hold of. So whilst we create a lot of content, we actually spend as much, if not more time, trying to get it in front of the right people. So we kind of have an 80-20 rule where we're like 20% of the time creating the content and 80% of our time is distributing it, trying to get to the right people. And it goes back a little bit maybe to that Dilla lesson of sampling, repurposing stuff. So we'll make what we call like a big rock piece of content, that covers everything you might want to know from a founder's perspective about crowdfunding. And then we think about different ways that we can repurpose that. So is it owned, earned, paid media? Is it different formats? In social, are we going to make it more visual led? Are we going to go with like a crisp type quote and those kind of things? And a lot of it, our marketing exists to make selling easier. That doesn't mean that our marketing is paint by numbers or we're just there to kind of like, do whatever request comes from the sales team. But really what we do is either put more stuff in the top of the funnel or move things quicker through the funnel. And content is really one of the supporting elements that we use to do that.
And what's working for your audience right now?
In terms of our audience right now, it's really, they've definitely got a big demand on things being really good, sort of like 10x style content, much better, kind of doing less and doing it better. The bar for what they want to see as good is really high. So anything that's educational, anything that's authentic, that human touch is really important. And we try and add a little bit of humor in, but bearing in mind that when you're talking about raising money, it's a serious business. And entrepreneurs put their whole life, all of their time into it. a lot of the time they have a financial commitment that goes way beyond the success of the business. Even if the business doesn't work out, they're personally liable for it. So we inject a little bit of humor, but we try and be transparent, upfront, make sure it's data driven. We've got things that really land. And yeah, really just educational stuff is key for us. A lot of people don't know what equity crowdfunding is, particularly if you think about France, where it's quite a new thing. A lot of people are a little bit wary. It's a trust thing. You think about it being your own business. So what's working? Genuine, authentic, well thought out content. And we have a mantra of like, do less, do better. So we maybe only actually do one piece of content a quarter, which sounds nuts. But I can give you the example that when I joined Crowdcube, there were over 1,000 blog posts on the blog. Each one had less than one view a day. First thing I did, sharpen my axe. I got rid of 970 of those blog posts. Absolutely no material impact. And I've just been creating one piece each quarter and then really, really promoting it. And also relentlessly getting feedback, right? It's not always nice. And some of the feedback kind of stings a little bit, but it's what makes us better. So kind of trying to understand what people want.
I love the idea of creating 10x content. I think that the hard part is the execution. You sort of nailed it. Is like, hey, we're going to try to make less and we're going to make it better. It's just so infrequently that you hear people just say, no, we're just going to focus on making really, really good stuff, even if it takes a whole quarter to do it.
I learned that lesson at a previous company. I kind of started out purely as a content marketer in the good old days of like, make some content, get it to rank, build out the backlinks. Happy days. I know it's much more fractious now. The world's changed a lot. That's 10 years ago. But I used to work for a company that makes invoicing software. Now that sounds like the most boring thing imaginable. Getting paid is cool, but like the way you do it is so dry. I used to have to pretend that I did something else because people were like, you do what? Oh, I'm not talking to you. But the marketing for it is really cool. Bear with me here. No one Googles invoicing software. And bear in mind, this is back when like Google reigns supreme, right? If you're not on Google, it's not happening. No one looks for invoicing software because no one knows it exists. Everyone looks for an invoicing template because they think, I can't be bothered to make my own invoice. I don't even know how to do it. I get it wrong. Something legal is going to happen. I'm not going to get paid. So what do? You look up like all the best invoicing templates. So you spend like probably like a month making an insane Excel invoicing template. You make a Word version, make Google Slides version, make a PDF version. You get those to rank and you have to do a lot of outreach to like get people to link to it. There's loads of creative ways you do that. Once you've got that going, it's amazing. So again, thinking of like one piece of content a quarter, it would be like this quarter we're just making a couple of invoicing templates and we get them to rank. Next quarter, what else does an entrepreneur care about? Time tracking template. So yeah, that's probably a more clear-cut example of doing that. Well, with what we do now, we still do it, but we don't really have high keyword searches for entrepreneurs. They're not Googling how to raise money, or they shouldn't be. That's not who we want to work with. So it's like a slightly different approach. But yeah, I mean, the invoicing template, again, super fun.
That's so funny. Yeah, if the most obvious thing that they would be searching, if they are searching that, then that's probably not who we want. That's a really funny sort of concept and a great point. What about what are your favorite pieces of content or campaigns that you've worked on?
One of my favorite ones, I even gave it a name, right? I wouldn't be a good marketer if I didn't name my concepts, is WTF ABM. So basically is ABM. And being a new concept, it's career suicide to go when you're quite new in a company and say, can I have a large amount of money for an unproven concept that's not going to generate any business? Maybe. And I'm going to spend a quarter on it. I might as well show myself out, right? So what we did was, again, we have like a 70-20-10 rule, where like 70% of your budget should be on things that already work. 20% is testing out new ideas and 10% is on a moonshot. This was less than 10% and it was kind of a moonshot. What was our problem? Like I said, kind of our marketing team exists to help make sales easier. We're not there sort of to do the selling or to kind of just paint by numbers, but we help facilitate commercial conversations. Problem we have is it's really hard to get hold of busy founders, particularly the ones of successful businesses. And it compounds when it's someone who doesn't need to raise money right now. People that need to raise money, they come to you and you have a conversation about whether you want to work with them. But if I've got a successful business, I've got legit VC backers, I don't need money right now and I'm growing like crazy. talking to me is one of the least of their problems, and they're probably not interested in it. So what's the problem statement here? We want to generate positive interactions with hard to reach growth founders of successful startup businesses. What do we do? How do we make that stuff that really pops and stands out and kind of shows out on their feed? Well, first thing we did is talk to our sales team and said, who are you struggling to get hold of that you'd love to work with? Of course, there's a really long list of really successful businesses. Then this is basically an ABM one-to-one play. So we need companies that are kind of similar. So we make a decision matrix where we score the companies. We have a long list of companies, and then we score them with things like suitability for crowdfunding. And, there's certain metrics with how big is your community? How much money have you raised? What type of business are you? Complexity of buying committee. If you're looking at how many decision makers are there in a business that we need to thread or to start talking to. Then you've also got the idea of sort of generally as a business, how well they're doing. Anyway, you give a score for each of those ones. The point being that we started with maybe 100 businesses. We narrow it down to 7 businesses. And then we think, right, our goal as a marketing team is to get a conversation for our sales team with these businesses. How do we do it? So the first thing is to decide like the messages we want to say to people. So it's like, what is crowdfunding? Why is it good for your business? Why should you choose our business to work with? And then like the different channels or strategies or touch points that we can get to talk to these businesses. And we basically layer them. So the first thing we did is these businesses are all big enough that they have enough employees on LinkedIn that we can start doing just general feed ads to them in their feed. The idea is just to like prime them that they see our company popping up sort of in their feed, kind of almost subconsciously. They're like, oh, this is week 1, by the way. I see a bit of Crowdcube. Week 2, we work with a PR agency. So, who doesn't love being asked their opinion about stuff? So we pick some of the companies. And if we're trying to work on a feature in the press, week 2 is sending out PR requests to those businesses and saying, love what you do. We'd love a quote from you about X, Y, or Z, or how does this work? We also do what we call like organic social or social listening. So we get maybe some of our sales team to do a post about one of those businesses or the founders and tag them in it. So far, you're probably thinking like, why have you gone on for 5 minutes? This is quite boring. It's not particularly remarkable. This is where I'm pretty happy. This is where it got really interesting, right? So we went for like a green theme on the businesses. One of them does insect protein. So they farm crickets, they crunch them up, and then make them into burgers, right? I mean, it's not everyone's bag. I think it's kind of cool. What did we do? We found one of the companies that we'd already worked with that also grows insects. We bought 6 kilos of their mince and we sent it to this other company, the target company, in the post, right? They get this large box that arrives at their office. They're a bit like, WTF, what is this? Open it, and it has a small card on the top with a QR code. It says, are you wondering why we sent you 6 kilos or 6,000 grams of crickets? Scan the QR code, which is UTM tagged so we can see if it gets scanned. And then there's a message saying, hi, we help companies raise money. They probably know that because we've been sort of priming them the weeks before, right? We've sent you 6,000 grams because we think you could get 6,000 investors through our platform. Are you open to having a conversation? Click here to the Calendly link to book a meeting with one of our sales team. And this is a nice bit as well. We'll go for lunch together at a insect food place in London sometime. And it worked. We got the meeting. So that was quite cool. It was pretty fun.
That's amazing. I love the you shared an image with us where it's a thing with a QR code and it says, wondering why we sent these beans. It's just like great.
That one we did with jelly beans. So we tried to buy beans that were the company's brand color, and we sent someone round to that company with like a large jar of beans and the QR code as well. I mean, yeah, it was fun. It was something different, right? It was quite, I thought it was cool content.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Fantastic. Super creative. And it costs you what? Some crickets and some jelly beans.
Not a lot, exactly. Yeah, couple of kilos of cricket mince and a few kilos of jelly beans.
Yeah, you talk about this 95-5 split, which we talk about as well. Of the 5% of people are actually in market versus the 95% of people are not. How do you use that as part of your content strategy?
The way we think of it is that the 5%, they're in our funnel. That's our demand capture. That's the people who know us. They understand what we do. And how do we move them through our funnel? They're ready to go. What can we do to pull the trigger. Now, because the size of the deals that we work with is quite large, the sales cycle is quite long and it's quite multi-touch. So what we do there is we have a fantastic designer. He's literally a musician. He was a musician, but now he's a magician with decks. And he makes these fantastic, best-in-class content decks. And we'll just go and pitch what our marketing is, how it works and what we do. So we kind of sell the dream. And we've got a great story, right? It's really engaging people. So we use a lot of kind of very bespoke content when people are in the funnel. It might be case studies as well. It might be proof points. A lot of that is really sales enablement stuff on the demand capture side. The 95% is the other more interesting part, I'd say, which we call our demand gen. So it's kind of like of all of our TAM, which is large, there's a lot of founders, everyone needs money, who don't know we exist. How do we get on their radar and what do we do? Now, when I started at Crowdcube, they had the big 4 social platforms, a little bit pre-TikTok era. So we've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. The company is posting the same thing on all platforms every day. Now, surprise, surprise, it wasn't really getting that much engagement. It's good to have a presence and they'd built up a good following. But again, do less, do better. First thing I did was, look, we don't have enough people to be managed. Each of these platforms could have one person on them full time doing different things. We've also got a marketplace. So you actually need like 8 different content streams. Let's shut 3 of them down. Which one do we pick to keep? We picked LinkedIn because as I said, like we have supply and demand. And so for us, it was like, it should be founders first. We have a mission on LinkedIn. And I kind of first thing I did is like, it's just do a 1-pager. Like, what is the point of why we do LinkedIn? And there's sort of the goal is to build a relevant brand within the growth startup ecosystem on LinkedIn that appeals to our target audience and can be used to generate awareness. That's the goal. Then you have 3 content streams and everything we post has to relate back to one of those streams. Mostly. We do the occasional like Happy World Pizza. We don't do that one, but like there's the occasional like fun bit of content, but should do Happy Donut Day. But so then what you get, then when you have demand generation is that I think of this applies to content in the sense that I think of LinkedIn as a whole ecosystem. I do not think of it as just posting on our page. We have what we call hubs and spokes. So we've got a page that's going well. We've got 34,000 followers. We had about 500 followers a month organically. Within that, I don't really care about that number. We know how many of those people are CXO or decision makers. That's around about 25% of our base. And the person in charge of that number, their goal is to increase, like maintain that 25% as it grows. So we post a lot of content on the feed itself. But if you think about the other hubs that we've got, our employees, we're a quite large company. People are quite active on LinkedIn. So how can we as a marketing team support them with content that they want to post about? It's not about strong arming people and saying, you have to post. You know, like we'll have Slack groups as a marketing team with different people in our sales team. We send them memes, we discuss ideas, we help them post. Second thing that we do. Third thing that we do when it comes to content is we use our brand page and give it a little bit of personality. So we comment on a lot of things as well. We've got to be careful because we're raising money, we're regulated, and no one wants like a funny funding platform. We had a bit of character to it, a bit of spark, gives our compliance team headaches, but you know, we stay well within our guidance. And then the other one that we do, which I think is really interesting, is again, remember that we're targeting founders. So what we do is we look at the target companies that we'd like to work with or companies that we have worked with, and we look at the CEOs of those companies and we look at who they follow, who they interact with. We then make a list of those founders and a list of the people that they follow. And we see a pattern of like 5 to 10 people that everyone follows. And then we, as Crowdcube, set ourselves a target of commenting on 2 or 3 of those people's posts every week. And again, do less, do better. So it's not like a rocket emoji and a thumbs up. It's trying to say something a little bit clever or interesting. And that's really our demand gen play, because all of the like VCs, funding, a lot of entrepreneurs, they are on LinkedIn. And that's kind of what we want to try and do in terms of building out demand gen. We also have a blog. We drive people there a little bit, but it's mainly LinkedIn in terms of demand gen. So people know we're there and how to reach us.
All right. What is one piece of advice that you would give to other heads of content?
Slightly controversial. And I'll caveat this with, I read a lot of business books. I've learned a lot from a lot of marketing books. It wouldn't be where I was today if I hadn't read them. Stop reading marketing and business books. Just go out and read like all sorts of other stuff. See what you can learn. because you can get a little bit stuck in a marketing echo chamber. And a bit like, we're talking about Dilla and how you can learn lessons from that. There's marketing lessons everywhere because, like you said, marketing is really about curating relevant, interesting information and content, getting an emotional connection to people, and then bringing it back to them as well. And you can find that anywhere. I mean, I came across one the other day, which is a story about kings and potatoes, but it suits marketing really, really well. It's this idea that in the 18th century in Prussia, people mainly ate bread, which is at the time in very short supply. And the king at the time, King Frederick the Great of Prussia, he wants to switch people to potatoes. But potatoes are quite new. People are wary of potatoes and no one's eating them. Now, King Frederick is quite the marketer, it seems, because what does he do? He tries to persuade people. He tries to threaten people. He tries to get them fines. Nothing works. No one's eating their potatoes. They're still munching their bread. So he adopts a scarcity technique. He builds a royal potato patch in his palace garden. He upgrades the potato to a royal vegetable. You've got your exclusivity. And he decides that only royals can eat the potatoes. And then he puts people to guard the potato patch, but not to watch it too closely. And because of that, people come, people want to get to the potatoes because they can't have the potatoes. So really, I think the lesson on my advice is, just always be open and receptive. Just do a lot of things, consume a lot of different types of content, and try and get out of your marketing echo chamber, and don't use acronyms because they do my head in. Like, I don't think people outside the marketing world understand them too much.
I love it. Great potato story. That's fantastic. I love that. I've never heard that. Yeah, marketing happening all over the world, all over time. We just didn't call it then. Call it that then. John, fantastic having you on the show. Awesome learning about Crowdcube. If you're a founder, you're looking to raise some money, or if you're head of marketing for a founder, just go check out crowdcube.com. John, any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that Murder in HR is absolutely awesome. And if anyone hasn't listened to it, do yourself a favor and go and listen to it, because we talk a lot about content, feeding content. Honestly, I told you this before when we were discussing, but I fell off my chair when I heard the concept. And I understand that it generates a load of business too, right? So go check out Murder in HR. It's honestly one of the best pieces of content I've ever seen. So.
Oh, thanks, John. Appreciate it. That's really awesome. And likewise, I'll be looking for as my son calls them, my colored beans. So I guess you can't say jelly beans because jelly bean is an official branded term. My son only wants non-branded food, I suppose, or at least that's what his school tells him. John, awesome chatting. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks a lot, both. Have a great day.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.